to generate content ideas for social media. My name is Luann Wise. If we haven't met before, I know we have some regulars attend these webinars now and have a look, but I am a marketer. I've done this for 20 years now, work mainly as a consultant with clients in the B2B area, consulting, working with them on a day-to-day basis, helping them with their marketing plans, helping them with social media activity and reporting. Still working on month end. I don't know if any of you are, but my deep dive marketing specialism is the world of social media. I work directly with LinkedIn and actually finishing the recording of a new course for them this week. I'm also an accredited trainer for Facebook and Instagram, a coach for Google, and I'm really proud to be an IPSE ambassador. This topic about content, I'm taking a few different angles today, but hopefully because you're getting the recording and you're watching this, I've included lots of resources to help you. I know that when we're watching these sessions, we like to have some immediate takeaways, some ideas that we can implement initially. So hopefully there's something like that in here for you today, or perhaps just some reminders. The importance of content, and we've heard this statement, content is king, but it's now from 1996, which makes me feel like all those 20 years of marketing, that content is so important, and that Bill Gates said all those years ago that creating compelling online content will be the key to success in the digital age. And I think that's so important. He was clearly right. But if we particularly look at what's been happening over the last 6 months, how our comms have shifted nearly all online, social media use has increased significantly. That's where we're spending our days because that's what we have accessible to us. Therefore, our content consumption has also increased significantly over the last 6 months. And what I'm hearing from when I'm talking to other marketers one-to-one or in some roundtable events is actually the challenge right now is that there is even more noise than ever, and we need to stand out. And we're going to stand out with great content that is really relevant for the people that need to see it. So that's the key word, I think. I'm always using the words relevant and consistent, and that's what we want to aim for. Just to get started, before I kind of talk about how to generate those ideas, I wanted to cover off, mainly as a reminder, that there are 4 different types of content. My big suggestion to you, and I'll recap this at the end, is that whenever you have a content idea, have the idea first and then decide what type of content to create, rather than thinking, I need to write some blogs or I need to create some videos. For me, I think the idea should come first, then choose the content type that fits that idea best. I am going to talk more about written content though, because it is something that everyone's producing for websites, for social media, etc. So that's one I'm going to dive into a bit more, but there are, of course, other types of content, and I will be talking about them a bit. Written content is everything from your social media posts through to blogs, white papers, guides, checklists, ebooks and books. Anything that's written is great content. It comes naturally to some people, not quite so naturally to others, but I've got some resources in this deck that I think will help you if writing isn't perhaps your first content choice. Visual content, we know how important that is. We know that, you know, a picture paints 1,000 words, that people really like visual content, they connect with it quickly, that some social media platforms like Instagram are kind of really image led. What can you do? You don't need to be an amazing photographer to produce great visual content. It could be images though of your products, of your team, behind the scenes, or graphic content as well, kind of infographics and charts, etc. Audio and video, we're doing both of those right now with this webinar. I think we're all doing more webinars or involved in more webinars and audio and video content over the past few months. Unfortunately, not live event coverage, but recorded event coverage. Video, audio, also great for doing demos of your products, of your services. The course that I'm working on at the moment includes lots of screen capture and how to do things. videos with your customers. I've done a series of videos over the summer with kind of other marketers talking about different topics. People just like to listen or get involved, particularly I think at the moment when we're lacking as much human contact as we're used to and would like to have. And finally, I'm not covering this in this session, but just to add in a different type of content that I think is really popular, a bit harder to produce and create, but any quizzes, calculators, it is easy to create polls on social media, particularly Instagram stories, games or competitions. Anything that your audience can actually get involved with is a great type of content as well. So 4 different types there, but I would advise idea first, then what type of content is this good for, rather than necessarily going, I want to produce reels, I want to produce videos, I want to produce a podcast. Have the big idea first, then work through the type of content. And after we've got those 4, on a day-to-day basis as you're working, I would also group content into 2 further types. And I would call this in the moment content. So this is maybe about what's happening in the world right now, trending topics, or it could be pre-planned time-related activity. There's a link to a blog article at the bottom that I've written. I'm a big fan, particularly on social media, of using awareness days as content. Should have looked at what today is. I'm not sure what today is, but it will be something. Last week we had International Coffee Day, one that's quite close to my heart. You know, there is often a lot of awareness days that you can get your content involved with, so you can pre-plan your time-related content. Other time-related content could mean that you're looking at what's trending on Twitter right now, literally what's in the news headlines this morning. But I would advise only get involved if it is relevant for you and your business. Don't get involved in a topic just because everyone is talking about it. If it's not relevant and you get involved, it can kind of backfire a little on you too. The other type of content, which is your core content, is what we would call evergreen. And that's content that's always relevant. It doesn't become dated or too dated. You might want to give it a refresh. But it's about having some core content that you could literally post at any time. My article on how to use awareness days, for example, is what I would call a piece of evergreen content. It's something that I could post in October, I could post in January, I could post in March, I could post it again and again because people will either want it at that point of time or want to be reminded about it. It doesn't go out of date. So 2 different types of content. I think it's useful to have a good mix of those as well. When it comes to written content, I thought I'd start there because that is the content that most people are looking to create, or where they start before they try and produce other content. Again, I have a blog where I've written this up before on my top tips for writing. I find that when I'm working with marketers or working within organisations, that some people are quite happy to sit and write blogs. Some people find this a huge throwback to being at school and being asked to write an article or an assignment and think that they're going to get marked on it. You're not. But there is some structure that works around a blog, and that is to have a good headline. I'm going to talk about this in a bit more. Do include some stats if you can to support your argument. Include some quotes if you've got quotes from any famous people, like my Bill Gates one, that can help pull things out and explain things. Do make it easy to read online content. People are reading on a screen, sometimes a big screen, sometimes a small screen. So try and break that up with subheadings, bullets, and numbered lists can help as well. Do include links if you can to maybe further resources or other articles on your website, to external resources. And most importantly, make sure you have a call to action. I'm talking about using social media and content for business purposes today. So if you've written a blog, you want someone to do something as a result of reading that blog. So tell them what you want them to do. Is there a next step in the process? Is there a download with more details? Or would you like someone to contact you to discuss it? Or have you got an event coming up to find out more on that topic? You are doing this for a business reason. So think about what you want people to do when they've read your content. Whether it's a blog or whether it's a social media post, it has to have a call to action. Headlines are not always the easiest thing to write. Some people write them first, some people write them at the end. I do both. But there is a tool, I've put a link in here to you, that can be quite useful. That's a headline analyzer. And you can put in the headline that you've already written yourself, or put in some keywords, and it will help you write and get the strongest headline as you can. Because headlines is basically, you know, we see this first, and this is what encourages us to click through. It is important though that your headline isn't clickbait or fake news, because then people will be disappointed when they click through to get the article. But if you struggle with headlines, then I would highly recommend having a look at that co-schedule resource and playing around with it. It will give you some really good ideas. Another resource I use for written content, long articles, books, publications, social media posts as well, is a tool called Grammarly. They've actually introduced some new business features to it over the past few days. There is a free version and there is a paid for version, but I love it in that it is so much more than a spell check, because it's a sense check as well. You know, sometimes your spellings can be correct, but they're not the correct word to be using in that sentence. So I find I will always copy and paste my blogs, articles. If it's quite a long post that I'm doing on social media, I'll copy and paste it into Grammarly to see if there's any amends. And you can also get a Chrome extension downloaded to your machine so that you can use that within your emails and social media posts as well. It will highlight things and make recommendations. My last recommendation for written content, if you're not overly comfortable with looking at a blank screen and getting started, it can be quite daunting. Or also if you are not the expert within your business, but you need to maybe talk to someone else and get their expertise. And I know it's really difficult if you want to email a colleague and ask them to write a blog, because they either won't see it as their job or they're, again, not a confident writer. My biggest tip is to ask them for a conversation. You may be doing that on Zoom right now, or go to a webinar or online. Or if you do in the real world, again, get to meet people face to face, just perhaps try and use a voice recording app. I use these by just saying, do you mind if I record this so I don't have to scribble loads of notes? And it allows me to stay in the moment and kind of ask questions as if it's more of a chat, rather than literally me trying to scribble everything down. And I use these apps. Personally, I use rev.com, and I also use otter.ai. Not also are they great for voice recording, but both of them have the option to get a transcription. So for example, I will even take this webinar afterwards and upload it to one of these apps and get a transcription, which means that then I can repurpose it into a blog. So I find that I use this all the time if I'm doing online interviews or conversations or speaking to experts. It's far easier to have a chat about it, get a transcription, and then I've already got a few hundred words that I can edit from, rather than starting with a blank screen. I find it far easier to edit than I do to get started with something. So I hope there's a few resources that are useful there if you're creating written content. We are coming on to ideas soon, don't worry. I also wanted to share, because we know how important visual content is, some resources that you may want to use for that. You can use photography and photography libraries. Just 3 I use that are royalty free, which means that you can use those images without implication. They are libraries that have allowed you to use those images free of charge without breaching copyright. They are Unsplash, Pixabay and Vectorstock. Just 3 examples. I'm sure there's hundreds more. You may use others. For creating graphics, I've used them within presentations. For social media graphics, I find Canva is a very easy design tool to use. You can use a free version, you can have a paid for version. I personally have the paid for version, which I think is about £10 a month, because it allows me to store in there all my brand colors, my brand fonts, and drag and drop things a lot easier. Another app that's great for using social media graphics, if you want an image with some words behind it, in front of it, like the example at the bottom, is something called Word Swag. And if you like to use GIFs or memes in your content, a couple of tools there that you could use are Giphy and Meme Generator. If you search any of those, you will find them quite easily on Google. I'm sure there's hundreds more as well, but this is the kind of set of resources that I use when I'm creating content. Video content is increasingly popular as well, whether you shoot that from your phone, whether you have a great camera to do it from. Again, video doesn't all need to be people to camera action. It could be graphics as well. A couple of tools that I will use if I'm creating video that I thought would be useful for you. If you have created something, you could record it on Zoom or go to webinars, something like this. If I wanted to add captions at a later date for accessibility, for posting on social media, if you think people are going to have their sound switched off, I would again use rev.com, and I would therefore request an SRT file. It will say, do you want subtitles? And when I've got those subtitles, you can download them. You are able to edit them if you need to before you download. I then use another tool called Capwing, and I basically will upload my video, I'll upload the SRT file, and Capwing will stitch the two together so I get a beautiful output of my video and then captions along the bottom. Lumen 5 is another free tool. It's a bit like Canva, but for video. It's one that I've used before. The great thing I like about Lumen 5 is that you could cut and paste in a blog that you've written, and it would help you to create a short video post from it, with graphics, with text, with background images, all in there. Maybe add a bit of music if you want to as well. There's increasingly so many tools out there that can help you produce content. It takes a bit of time, but budget-wise, it's low cost or free. So let's talk about ideas and the best place to get ideas. Now we've talked about content. Another quote, an author that I love, who's written lots of books. If you're looking for a read right now, I would highly recommend looking up Seth Godin. I think he's got about 15 books in the market. But he says, and I think this is what's so powerful, is that marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories that you tell. So my biggest piece of advice for content and content ideas is just to think about telling a story and telling the story of your business, which actually makes it so much easier, breaks it down, shouldn't mean it's such a chore, because your posts on social media could be what you're working on today, what you're looking forward to, something that you've finished creating, something that you've read that has just inspired you. It's just short storytelling to stay consistent and visible, rather than thinking I need to produce so much big new stuff. So think of it all in stories. My other, and this is probably the one slide that summarizes the presentation in terms of where to get your content ideas from. And my top place for content ideas, particularly the evergreen ones, is just to think about, what FAQs do you get asked every day? Is there something that you get asked all the time that you could literally just create a piece of content on? If you're not sure, a great piece of advice I heard from someone, it's not my own, is to look through your email outbox and just see if there's something that you regularly answer a question on. Again, have the idea, and then you could say, oh, that could be a blog, how to use awareness days. Actually, I always get asked how to personalize a URL on LinkedIn. I'll just create a little video of that. FAQ content is what people want, what they're looking for when they're searching online. They have questions. So if you went away after this session and just wrote down the questions you've been asked over the last couple of weeks, I'm sure you would have a bank of content ideas. If you can't think of your own FAQs, then perhaps ask your colleagues or your peers what they get asked all the time as well. And for content ideas, There's a caveat around this, but I do recommend that you have a look at what your competitors are doing. Do not copy them, but have a look at what your competitors are doing. And the point here is, don't worry if your FAQ or your content idea has already been done, because you have your own unique stance on it. You have your own unique resource list, your stats that back it up, your own case study, your own opinion, and that is what your audience are looking for. So don't think that just because you've seen that there's a blog on awareness days or how to write a blog that you can't write the same thing. Someone has probably done the research, thought about their FAQs and thought, I need to write some content on this because I get asked all the time. So do have a look at what's already out there, but please, please, please make it your own and don't copy it exactly. Professional bodies are a great place to find out what people are thinking, what people are asking, if they've got research or latest information that you can share. If it's not your own professional body, then perhaps think about the professional body of your audience, of your customers, and what they might want to know about or find interesting or be impressed that you know about. And just generally use social media, particularly for the timely information, the timely topics. As I said, Twitter, what's trending, LinkedIn's news feed, what people are talking about on Facebook. I was just this morning finishing off a monthly report for one of my clients that I support, and our top post across all channels last month was a really quick in the moment post on a Saturday when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and there was lots of RIP posts and her image and quotes. We jumped into that in the moment because we thought it was relevant to her audience and what she talks about. And that was our top post last month with over 80,000 views. It wasn't in the plan, it didn't take long to produce, it was a very quick image and get involved with, but it just hit the mark with our audience perfectly. So watch social media all the time and see what's going on. Just to take a step back to the FAQs, if you're not sure what your FAQs are or you hit a bit of a block, I do have a tool for you. Just be warned before I change the slide. Answerthepublic.com is a wonderful, wonderful free website. It's free for a few searches a day. Above that, you would need to do a paid for search, a paid for account. Answerthepublic.com, I think they've changed this image. I think it's a younger guy that looks at you now. But you can basically enter your keyword and he will suggest your content ideas. Answer the Public works on the basis of what people are searching Google and Bing for, so what people are searching for online. It doesn't have numbers behind it, but it just has an output. When you put in the keyword, it has an output in terms of who, what, when, why, how, and where. And it presents that in a really nice chart, but most importantly, you can download that as a CSV file. So if I'm writing a new blog, or I'm writing a new course, or a chapter of a book or something I'm working on, I will always go to answerthepublic.com, put in my topic, and have a look at the questions that come out. And I'm sure if you do that this afternoon, you've probably got enough content for something a week for the rest of the year. You don't have to use them all. They might not all be relevant to you, but it's just perfect for just getting a really quick breakdown. And if you go back to that whole idea of what should your headline be, then I think questions work really well. Or when you're writing, to write as if you're answering a question and then change the headline at the end to something like 5 tips on how to do this. So when you write as if it's answering a question, the words I think come a lot easier, and perhaps video demos as well. A couple more slides before we take questions. It's coming up to 5 to 1. I mentioned this on the productivity session last month, and I've kind of hinted at it throughout this as well. Content, it does take time to create. Whether or not you have lots of ideas, it still takes time to create. So 2 key points here. 1, repurpose. If you have one idea and can't decide whether it works best as a video, a blog, or a webinar or a presentation, do one and then repurpose it into something else. So for example, today's webinar has been a series of social media posts, is now a live event. It will be a recording on YouTube later. It will then become a blog at some point. And if we get plenty of questions, I may choose to turn that into a Q&A about content piece. Sweat everything you do as much as you can. Don't think that you have to churn out new stuff all the time. And also, if you take that idea on board of evergreen content, you may want a blog about awareness days today, or actually you may want it in 3 months' time. I can just keep posting that and sharing that on social media every now and again, because someone will always want it or want to be reminded about it. It would be a huge waste of time and energy writing 500 words and then just posting it once. So do think about repurposing into other formats if you've got a great idea, but also just keep posting the evergreen stuff, not every day, but just kind of rotate it and keep pushing it out there. I have a final note. I have talked about using competitors as a source of ideas. A final note that I wanted to share with you, I think is really important on the topic of content. And that is, you don't have to create everything yourself. But if you are sharing in social media posts or on your website or something else, content that doesn't belong to you, please have a read of this article. I'm not sharing legal advice, but what I am sharing is you cannot take other people's content and photos. I had this happen to me 3 times last week. My blog articles were taken without my name against them, everything, word for word screenshots, everything but my name, and it was passed off as their own. Last week I had other content that was posted. I had photos that were taken and tweeted without permission, and it's not acceptable to do that. If you are sharing other people's content, then at least either ask permission first, get permission, or just acknowledge, mention them. Great article by Content Marketing Institute. Looking forward to this event with. Do not try and pass things off as your own. It is not right and it is not fair. And you don't need to create everything yourself. Actually, if you're sharing lots of other people's content, it says something about you in that you're well read and you're the go-to expert because you're taking in all these sources. So before questions, some top tips to round this off today. With your social media, with your content, what is most important, I'm sure we'll get a question on best times to post or how many days a week. My biggest answer to this is be visible and be consistent. Whether your consistency level works for you to be daily, fortnightly, weekly, or monthly, just make sure that you keep showing up and that you show up in the right places where your audience are, with the right messages, and that you're consistent. Don't disappear when you're really busy and then come back again when you're looking for more work. Just make it a habit. And if you think of it in terms of storytelling, what am I doing? What am I working on? Then that will make it easier for you as well. Do know your audience and create your content for them. This is their frequently asked questions. This is what they're interested in order to do business with you and to get to know you. As I said, tell stories, be authentic, your opinion, your insight, your examples that you gather. Do have your idea first and then choose the content type. And just remember, less is more. Repurpose your existing content. And if there was any rules to take out for today when it comes to content creation, spend 20% of your time creating and 80% of your time distributing. So keep posting, and repeating it. And hopefully just that last idea will make the whole challenge of content creation a little less overwhelming. I've given lots of articles and links in this slide deck. You will get a copy of the slide deck with the recording. But if you want anything else, there is lots of free resources on my website. And I do a weekly roundup newsletter of resources like Grammarly I included today, or what's happening on social media. Bang on half an hour. I don't know how I manage that without a full rehearsal sometimes, but has anyone got any questions? I'm going to close down this. I'll keep the slide deck in case we need to flick back to it. Oh, it's World Architecture Day today. There you go. Thank you. Someone else. It's World Teacher Day. Grammarly, does it ensure it's English, not American? I do sometimes have American come up options like colour without a U and things like that, but I think you probably can change it. I haven't tried to change it, but for me, the American spellings are always really obvious that I don't need to check those ones anyway. You'd have to check, but I'm sure you would be able to change it. How did I realise that photos and blogs were taken without permission? Do I have a tool to discover things? I have an unusual name, so it's very easy to set up alerts so that I do have alerts on my name if my name is used in a post. One of them did use my name in content that they had taken, so that was easy to spot. Other times when I post a new article, for the next few days, I always do some searches on the article headline in Twitter, on Google, just to see what's happened, if someone shared it, and it just came up really easily that the title had been shared and taken, and the image as well. So I do have Google alerts set up. I do, look for all notifications of my name, but otherwise it's generally just searching for my titles to see what comes up. What did I do when I found my blog copied? The rational answer was I contacted them straight away, advised that they had breached the terms of use guidelines of the website, and asked them to remove it. Where do you find the content for World Whatever Day? In my blog article, there is a few resources that I use. You may look at the NHS. If it's health campaigns I'm looking for, they have a calendar. The United Nations have a calendar of their key events. Other resources, National Trust has a calendar, but mainly the one I use is daysoftheyear.com. Someone said you can change Grammarly. How do you create content for customers who don't exist yet? I'm working for a company that is not live. How can we reach people when we do go live? This is where FAQ content is great. If you don't have customers yet, you hopefully have a picture of who your customers are, what questions they may have, how you help, what are the features, what are the benefits. So, write for your customers, and you should know enough about them before you start, or have a look at what your competitors are doing. How can you reach them when you go live? I don't know the nature of your product or service, but it may be about building your audience on social media. We've run that as a webinar before, so there should be a copy of that recording in the IPSE library, or it is on my YouTube channel. Or it could be that you reach people by literally messaging them, an email, a LinkedIn message, a direct message. Depends on your audience, but you'll have to go out and let them know. That is a big thing, is there can be so much fear around, I'm going to create a blog, and you spend hours writing it, and then it's kind of tumbleweed because no one knows it's there, which is why it is 80% of your time pushing the content out. How do you deal with the worry of inadvertently offending people? I think if you think you're going to offend someone, you shouldn't be writing that in your content. If you haven't got something nice to say, then don't say it, or perhaps try and turn it into a positive. If you do think you're going to offend them, then perhaps out of courtesy, get in touch with them first, let them know that you're publishing something or sharing something. If you think you're going to, then perhaps you might be. I don't know the context of that question. But there's courtesy conversations. Not everything has to be out in the public domain. You can ask questions and pick up the phone or send emails. Is it correct to give a personal opinion on controversial subjects? If it is your business tone of voice, that's how you want to position yourself. It's worked very well for some people, like Simon Cowell doesn't hide his personal opinions. It is up to you if you want to take that stance. Entirely up to you. If you're an employee, I would probably check with your employer first, and that you're not breaching anything in your employee contract. But if you want to be the person that has strong, we all have personal opinions, but whether you want to get involved in controversy or not, I think is down to you and your personal brand. Just going to scroll through some of these questions just to pick out the ones. There's a few coming in the same. My business is new. I'm having trouble coming up with content as I don't have a lot of clients. Is this in terms of testimonials? Then yes, I guess testimonials or interviews are harder to do when you haven't got your clients, but just focus in the beginning on answering potential questions, or use answerthepublic.com for ideas and talk about your product or service. We all go on a journey in our business of people not being aware of us through to they are very aware of us, and then the questions are different at the different stages. So just take it slowly, create awareness first, and as soon as you have got new customers, then you'll know that you need to get testimonials and recommendations from them. You can't make them up, but maybe there is ways to speak to friendly people or people you've worked before that can endorse you personally before it's your new business endorsements. Yes, you will get a copy of the slides. How far in advance do you plan evergreen content? I constantly have a list of blogs or content that I would want to create, videos that I would want to create. I write the titles down first. It could be that there's a question in this chat box that I hadn't thought of before, and I'll go, oh, that's a great idea. So I would definitely do my ideas generation ongoing, or maybe batch my time and go, I just need to think about what questions I get asked, or content planning. But I think over time you will have conversations, perhaps if we were face to face and we'd go, there's a blog in that, or maybe you should record a video on how to do that if someone's asking you for how-tos. I work with clients where we plan monthly. I work with clients where we plan weekly, or sometimes we change things the night before or in the morning, particularly right now, depending on what's going on in the world. A couple of weeks ago, we had our week's plan, but then they announced that Boris was going to do his press conference in the evening, and we looked at this plan and went, I think that piece of content's a bit heavy for the morning. Let's swap that out, push it back a day, and put something else a bit more light-hearted and motivational in that day. So plan as far as advanced as you want, but I think you've got to stay agile in the moment and just check that what you're posting each day is right as well. A great question here. My business is long established in a market that is dormant. What post do you recommend if I'm looking to diversify? Write for the work that you want to have. Think forward, position yourself forward. If in my career, I've developed many websites, but I don't want to be creating many websites in the future. So I'm not going to create content and promote content that is about how to create a great website, or things to talk about when you're building a website, or how to do SEO. I will blog and video and webinar forward for the things that I want to do. So if you want to diversify, start thinking about what will your FAQs be from your future customers, and maybe tell some stories in there as well. We're in a situation where it's absolutely fine to say, I'm having to change what I'm doing because this is no longer available. I used to do lots of face-to-face events. I can no longer do this. We're absolutely fine to talk about that, but just make sure it's kind of planned and focused forward. Do I have a special software for content creation? For planning, notebook, pad and pen, post-it notes, but ultimately an Excel spreadsheet is how I work if I'm collaborating with someone on it. Oh, lots of questions. What equipment do you need to do a video blog? Well, a smartphone would be absolutely fine, or you could use something like Zoom. If you have a Zoom account, you could just speak to your screen and record it. There is other tools available, but I would just say if you want to do a video blog, just use your phone. It'll be absolutely fine to do that, and there's probably editing tools on your phone as well if you need to. If not, I think you can do some editing within YouTube, or if it is cutting beginnings and ends off, then I would probably recommend, there's lots of software for video editing. I don't do it myself personally because my husband is a videographer and photographer, so he does it all for me. But I would just start simple and just start with your phone. Come back to that one. Video content, any equipment I'd recommend. Again, I'd start with your phone. I guess the other thing that I would recommend if you're doing video is to have a good microphone. It may just be iPods, AirPods, or it may be fixed earphones or a Rode mic I use if I'm creating video content. And I think the other thing is lighting, good lighting. I have got a selfie light that's on behind my screen because otherwise I know that it can be a bit dark in this room. So I would say sound, lighting, clear backgrounds, preparation. If you want to, and I've done this recently, I'm not doing it now, I will use an app called Big View as a teleprompter. And I use that on my iPad in front of a camera and then can use a teleprompter if I'm doing anything scripted. What do I recommend for social media scheduling? It's entirely up to you. There are many, many social media schedulers available. You can now schedule directly on Twitter. You can schedule directly on Facebook. You can use Facebook's Creator Studio for Facebook and Instagram. You cannot schedule directly on LinkedIn. The third-party tool personally I use is Hootsuite. That's my chosen tool because I can use every platform and have multiple accounts access in there. But there are others available. Some people use Buffer, SmarterQueue, Meet Edgar, lots of tools available. There is free options and there's paid for options as well. I would suggest think about what you need and then go and find the tool for it. What's a cost-effective time to spend on this one? You need to do chargeable work too. Absolutely. I think this has to, if you're a freelancer or contractor, IPSE member, this is a business development tool, creating content and pushing content out. It's your networking time. It is, you're not earning money while you're creating this content unless you're getting paid to create the content for someone else. Whatever's, it's down to the same consistency. If you can do it every day because you're a great writer and you are a writer, do it every day. If you can do it once a week, do it once a week. I would work out your own business plan and how much time you can afford to spend. Or if you can't do it yourself and it's more cost effective and easier for you to outsource, there are ways that you can outsource writing, video, graphic content as well. I think there's a few questions here, but they are all things that we've kind of covered before. We can send out as links afterwards. What background do I use when doing a video blog? Sometimes I go outside, sometimes in my home office. I think it depends on your content. You can buy plain backgrounds. I would just say don't let the background distract from you and what you're saying. Last question I'll do today. How do you find out the best time to post on social media? So I guess that would be a question, and my answer was consistently. The answers to any questions like this are always within your own data. So the best time for you to post on Facebook will be in your Facebook page insights. If you find posts, you will see a chart that tells you when your audience are most likely to be online. You'll see the same on Instagram Insights. If you've upgraded to a business account on your app, it will tell you when your audience are most likely to be online. Twitter doesn't have that tool within it. You can use a third-party tool. Some schedulers have it, like Buffer has it, or there is a third-party tool called Tweriod, 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 and that will tell you again when your Twitter audience is most likely to be online, and that's when you want to post. LinkedIn, isn't as fast as the other social media platforms. I find I can post on LinkedIn and still get engagement, likes, comments, posts, shares within 10 days. So I don't think there is necessarily a best time of day to post on there. I think it's the best time of day to post for you, so that you can show up, that you don't just post something and run away again and lose the conversation. But just make a balance between what works for you and running your business, as someone else asked, versus scheduling things for when your audience are most likely to be online. There's resources in there. I think that's everything for today, Sarah. So 1:15. Thank you very, very much for attending. We will send you a copy of the slides and the recording. There is a new schedule of webinars on the IPSE website. We are putting together the schedule for next year. So if there is content that you would like us to cover, then please do get in touch. But otherwise, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.